Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you guys are all doing really well. In terms of today's video, we're actually going to be diving back into the world of TikTok because that's literally all I see these days for some reason. Obviously with TikTok being the new hot app, there's a lot of online discourse that starts on there and then it migrates to other platforms eventually. And usually I catch up on the conversation like halfway through it actually happening, mainly because on the app itself, I've been stuck on the Calico Critter reality show corner of TikTok. I'm not complaining though. It's actually a very interesting subgenre of content, but I quite literally am always late to the party solely because of fuzzy toy rabbit drama. So by the time that I heard about this whole like millennial versus Gen Z war that was going on TikTok, it was already well underway and there was more than enough what the fuck is this kind of content for us to sift through. Before we continue on with the video though, I did want to give a quick shout out to Audible who sponsored today's video. If you haven't heard of them before, Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks. They've got bestsellers, new releases, tons of different genres, and they now even host podcasts. I've really gotten into audiobooks this past year, mainly because I wanted to read a lot more than I was, and one of the big roadblocks was I just couldn't always find the time to read when I wanted to. I used to try to like read and multitask at the same time, so I would like read while I was trying to cook or do laundry, and it just never worked. The nice thing with audiobooks is that it's completely hands-free, so I can listen to my book and do whatever I wanted to do at the same time. They've also got guided meditations, which I have actually listened to. I'm trying to find my zen these days, guys, and it's pretty nice. I've also really been enjoying listening to audiobooks while I'm walking. It's just a nice change from like blaring music constantly. And what's also nice is that you can download or stream without any limit because you can listen to them offline too. Audible's also recently launched Audible Plus, where with a membership you can get full access to their Plus catalog, which has thousands of select originals, audiobooks, podcasts, and even ad-free versions of popular shows and exclusive series. I just actually finished listening to Bunny by Mona Awad this morning, which this thing has been on my TBR for ages, so I'm so glad I finally got to it. But the story follows a girl named Samantha who encounters this clique of like elite rich girls who are kind of like culty-ish. Like they all call each other Bunny, they all dress the same and talk the same, and it's just very weird. But as the reader, you get to watch Samantha interact with them because they're in the same workshop together, and then eventually get welcomed into their clique. Really weird stuff starts to happen. It is honestly an absolutely wild story, but I definitely recommend it. That doesn't sound like your thing though. Audible has thousands of different titles for you to choose from, so you're bound to find something that you want to check out. So if you want to give it a try, you can visit audible.com/Aonso or text Aonso to 500-500 to start your free 30-day trial. That's audible.com/Aonso or text Aonso to 500-500 to start your 30-day free trial with Audible. Thanks again to Audible for sponsoring. If you're interested, I would definitely check it out, but otherwise let's get back to the video. Before we get into the actual context of the battle between millennials and Gen Z, I did want to talk about both sides in this great digital war. I guess kind of give you a bit of a player profile. On the left we have the millennials, which according to Urban Dictionary, which is my favorite search engine, are an identity given to a broadly and vaguely defined group of people. Great. Very helpful. They do go on to mention that there's technically two wings of millennials, which are Gen Y and Gen Z, and then they go on to mention how confusing it can be to differentiate Gen X from Gen Y and Gen Y from Gen Z, and it just sounds like a very big, confusing clusterfuck. But I think a better way to kind of draw a line in the sand between millennials and Gen Z is that I feel like millennials are more likely to be sucked into a pyramid scheme on Instagram, while Gen Z are probably more likely to start a resin ashtray business on TikTok. I was actually really curious on where I fell on the spectrum between the two because I've honestly never really paid attention to the generational identity kind of stuff, so I never really knew which generation I belonged to. But I did look into it before I started filming, and it turns out that 1997 is a bit of a limbo year. Some people consider it the oldest end of Gen Z, other people think that it's like the youngest end of millennials. A lot of people also believe that we're just smack in the middle with nowhere really to belong. So I guess I'm sort of like an abandoned middle child in this situation, which typically would be bad, but I feel like in this context, I'm not that mad about it, mainly because while there isn't really a clear winner in this war so far, there definitely are two losers, which are both of the sides, because they are arguing over the most ridiculous shit. Like for example, what to call a pair of leggings. As I mentioned earlier, I did come across this conversation pretty late in the game, and the one thing that I don't like about TikTok as a platform is that it can be pretty hard to trace like the original content or discussion that people are building off of. And that's mainly because TikTok's algorithm is just so personalized that if you don't already have like a pre-established interest in what the conversation is, for the algorithm to know to throw it at your For You page, you're probably not going to come across it organically. So in general, it can be pretty hard to track down the origin of a lot of these big discussions, especially one as big as the Gen Z versus Millennial War, because it's gotten pretty big. In a way, it's almost kind of turned into its own subgenre of content on the app, where you have people actively engaging in it seriously, clowning it, or referencing it in whatever other context there is. But personally, I feel like there's at least 2 instances that really stand out to me as kind of the ground zero before this whole Gen Z versus Millennial War even started. Again, I could have totally missed other pivotal moments that kind of led up to everything. If there are any that you can think of, I'd definitely like to hear about them in the comments down below. But the first Gen Z versus Millennial fight that I ever witnessed on the app was the great yoga pants versus flared leggings debate. Tiffany Ferg actually did a really great in-depth analysis on the discussion, which I would definitely recommend checking out if you haven't already. But essentially what happened was this girl did a clothing haul on TikTok. It happened to include a pair of leggings in it, and with just 2 words, she managed to blow up the internet by calling them flared leggings. Just remember, Gen Z calls yoga pants flared leggings. God. Kind of the opposite, but I'm still upset over Gen Z finding out about yoga pants and calling them flared leggings in restaurant bathroom. So I bought these new style leggings that have a little bit of a flare to them. They're like flare leggings. They're yoga pants. Who decided to ruin this generation? Fuck. Is it okay if I'm the one that says that that last one probably did not happen? I think what's so funny about these tweets is that the way that people are talking about it, you would think that after yoga pants had initially gone out of style, that everyone had collectively brought their yoga pants together, stuffed them in a time capsule, dug up a hole, and then wanted them to stay down there forever, and somehow Gen Z found them, and then shock horror, renamed them. I'm sorry to tell you this, but today's teenagers are not the Christopher Columbus of activewear. They're just calling them by what they're listed as. And they're also just a pair of fucking leggings. A part of me does, though, get why millennials are so salty about this. And I think it's because the departure of yoga pants back when they were popular years ago was kind of messy. Back then, yoga pants were it. If you were wearing yoga pants and Uggs, you were wearing an outfit, and that outfit was also really comfortable. It also quickly became known as trashy and basic, and a lot of people were essentially just kind of shunned and forced out of wearing them. So maybe if you were one of those people who really enjoyed wearing it back then, and you felt like you were forced out of wearing it, and now you're watching today's teenagers try to pioneer it, maybe you'd be a little bit salty about it. But regardless of whatever motivations were behind millennials responding so aggressively, the conversation did eventually die out once most people realized that at the end of the day, they don't really give a shit about what other people call leggings. Watching this back, I realized that the sentence I'm trying to say here makes absolutely no fucking sense. What I was trying to say here was that the next generational discussion I wanted to mention that I think was a pivoting point before the whole war thing started isn't necessarily a generational discussion, but more so just a trend that really had Gen Z trying to set themselves apart from everybody else. And while I couldn't find an official single name for this trend, I guess it's kind of best described as Gen Z is the revolution. Most of the videos that fell under this trend were basically just whoever was filming it was standing like a video game character on a loading screen super dramatically, and they were standing beside or behind some sort of text that was outlining that they were tired of whatever social justice concern they were tired of. Of course, there was a lot of dramatic music, and the comment section was typically filled with stuff like this. I'm so proud to be from this generation. I'd be scared of our generation if I wasn't a part of it. What exactly is the point of this? I definitely think there is something to be said about the message of this trend, that other generations haven't been as effective with social justice, and that now Gen Z will pick up the slack, is being delivered in the most performative way possible, detached from any actual action. Not at all saying that the previous generation's social justice efforts shouldn't be criticized, but I just think that the way that Gen Z on TikTok decided to criticize it was kind of funny. The reason that I wanted to mention these 2 instances, though, is because I feel like they really set up the hostility between these 2 groups on the platform. On the one end, you have people that are angry that younger people are engaging with things that you had when you were younger, but they're giving them different names and stuff like that. And then on the other side, you have a group of people that are growing up on a platform that, on a good day, encourages people to dogpile comment sections with, "It's the blank for me, couldn't be me." I really can't imagine this going wrong for anyone. So this is where we get to the official Millennial versus Gen Z 2020 Smackdown, which I would lower your expectations because basically what's been going on is Gen Z will point at something that millennials like, say ew ugly, and then millennials would go on a rant that takes up 4 separate TikToks. The biggest points of debate so far seem to be side parts versus middle parts, yoga pants versus flared leggings, which we already talked about, and low-cut jeans versus high-rise jeans. Out of all of them, I find the hair parting one kind of weird because I, at least, have never really considered millennials as being the ones that started the middle part trend. I was just under the impression that we all thought it was risky to part our hair in the middle because we might look like Jesus' 13th disciple, but I'm starting to realize that might just be a me thing. Apparently the discussion right now is that Gen Z loves middle parts and they hate side parts because that's what millennials like. And by side parts, I mean very aggressive side parts. The jean debate definitely is the one that I'm the most interested in, mainly because I think it has the most layers to it. We're gonna get to that in a second, but I did want to show you guys some example TikToks from the actual war itself so you guys could get an idea of how people are engaging with each other.
Gen Z's trying to cancel Eminem? Honey, that's cute. Listen, little kitties, let me make...
I can't do this shit! I've listened to white girls trying to rap in cars. I've also listened to the Deplorable Choir for a deplorable amount of time. I have paid my dues. What the hell is this? I just don't understand why it always has to involve some nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty ass rap with a bad no copyright sound playing in the background. Evolution. It's all I'm asking for, okay? Just simple progression. We've been at the exact same place for 3 fucking years.
Hey Gen Z, you can suck it. You can't tell me what to wear.
I know for a fact that this girl is living her Lin-Manuel Miranda life right now. Like, I hate it, but I also don't hate it because she seems like she's having a lot of fun. Like, I love that for her. I just wish it came to fruition in a way that didn't involve this existing. I think what makes this so painful to watch is that it's clear that the dynamic is that millennials are responding to comments made by Gen Z. Usually the only videos that you'll see within the war that come from Gen Z are just complete disbelief that they've been able to get under the skin of adults this easily, especially considering that the typical comments that are making millennials so aggravated and inspiring them to make all of these videos are things like these. Me when Starbucks has pumpkin spice. Yes, queen. Hashtag work it. Hashtag slay. Hashtag yes. You go, girl. We'll wear our side parts if we want to, even though those Gen Zers hate on us. That'll show them. You're such a Hufflepuff. I guess no hashtag adulting for me today. Like, did they lie though? They did not lie. And in terms of a video response from Gen Z in this kind of context, it's usually somebody just duetting a video and like staring at the camera like this.
Before you were here, so what, you're all mad because the man was a lyricist while all your rappers are mumbling gibberish?
It's just clear from the amount of effort that millennials are putting into their responses versus Gen Zers, whatever the hell they're called, that it's clear that millennials are a million times more bothered about this. And when you whittle down this battle to the fact that it's just adults reacting to teenagers being teenagers, it's, what is the word I'm looking for here? And then of course it's inevitable that teenagers look at how bothered these adults are with their responses and they just keep flooding their comments even more, inspiring more cringy show tunes and raps, which now have flooded my entire For You page because I was actively looking for them for this video. I will never know peace. So now that you've seen the examples, you've probably been able to tell that the millennial side is a hell of a lot more bothered than the Gen Z side. And you might be wondering that, especially considering that they're adults. Like, what is the need? I do think there's a few reasons for this, but I think one of the bigger ones is that you have a group of people that grew up on the internet, but for the first time are starting to feel old on a social media app, which is an experience they've never had before. They quite literally grew up alongside the internet and had MySpace, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything. So now that they're entering an app like TikTok, where I'm sure they just expected the typical experience they have when they enter any kind of platform, but now we're kind of surrounded by all of these young people calling them old, it's probably a different and weird experience and has probably led them to be a bit more territorial over a lot of things. Also, I'm not saying that being a millennial is old at all, by the way. Like, it really isn't. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say here is that I just think that some people may be sensitive to the experience of feeling old in a space where they grew up, being online, and that might be why they're a little bit more hot and bothered about it. Also, being older than like the average age of TikTok's audience isn't even a bad thing on the app. Like, I see tons of grandparents that are being held hostage by their grandchildren for TikTok fame, or as we are led to believe, they found the app and they're just having some fun on there. Regardless of the context, they're still having fun. The other reason that I came across was actually quite tied to the jeans discussion. Basically, one of the elements of the millennial versus Gen Z fight was this argument about low-cut jeans versus high-rise jeans. I want to say for the past 10 years, high-rise jeans have been the pant. I've seen them in literally every possible cut and style you can make them in, and millennials as well as Gen Z honestly love them. They're a nice style of pants. But obviously there was going to come a day where a different cut of jeans was going to take its place because that's just how trends work. And unfortunately for a lot of people who hate low-cut jeans, it seems like those are the ones that are making a comeback, which is probably related to Gen Z's obsession with the Y2K aesthetic, which I'm sure a lot of people connect that era with low-cut jeans. Think Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, Misha Barton. Basically every it girl from back then wore them. And for some reason, it seems that millennials are very aggressive with their hatred for low-cut jeans and the idea that Gen Z are the ones who are bringing them back in style. At face value, I actually initially had the exact same opinion that I had on the leggings debate, which was pretty much, who the hell cares, it's an article of clothing. But surprisingly, I actually came across a TikTok that changed my opinion on it, so I thought I would share it with you guys. I really hope that I'm able to find the original TikTok because for some reason, before I started filming, when I went to my save tab, I could not find it, so I don't know if it's deleted or if maybe I didn't actually save it, but I thought I did. But I'm gonna try to describe it the best I can, and if any of you guys recognize it, please let me know what the username is so I can credit them, but hopefully mid-editing I'm able to find it. It was basically this guy who, I think he was Irish, but he was explaining why he thought the millennials were responding so aggressively to the idea that low-cut jeans were coming back. And he felt like they were responding so aggressively because it wasn't necessarily just the low-cut jeans that were the trend, it was the body that came with the jeans. It's definitely worth remembering that the body positivity movement that we see today did not really exist back then. And if you looked at the comment section on this guy's TikTok, it was dozens upon dozens of women speaking of their experience as teenagers back then and how they felt that low-cut jeans really reminded them of the extreme and destructive lengths that they go to fit into them. It seems that for a lot of millennials, low-cut jeans are not just low-cut jeans. They symbolize a point in their lives that they don't want to remember or go back to. And that's not just the fact that they don't want to go back to wearing low-cut jeans, they don't want to go back to the society that low-cut jeans were kind of surrounded by or attached to, which was a lot less forgiving of a lot of different body types. So essentially the point that this TikTok was trying to make was that millennials are responding so aggressively to low-cut jeans coming back in style because they've attached terrible experiences to these jeans and feel like them coming back in style is going to regress us in terms of body and beauty standards. And he had also mentioned that he felt that millennials were responding so aggressively because they don't want to see Gen Z teens go through what they went through as kids. Even considering that perspective that the TikTok brought, I don't necessarily think that every millennial that responded super aggressively was doing it solely to protect Gen Z. But I do agree that maybe there are a few people that were that fired up because of that reason. If any of you guys who are watching this actually were a teenager back then, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that because it was definitely a perspective that I had not even considered until I saw that TikTok. I did think it was important to include though, especially considering there's been so much recent discussion about TikTok specifically as a platform perpetuating toxic beauty or body standards, whether that's through the algorithm favoring certain body types, sexual orientations, races, or ability, or even the type of content that you find on there in the first place. I do think it's more of a coincidence more than anything though that it happens to be Gen Z who are growing up on a platform like TikTok that's seen as super toxic in terms of beauty standards and body standards that happens to be the one that's now recently obsessed with these jeans. But considering the history that these jeans apparently have, it definitely sounds like the perfect storm. But also at this point, I don't even really know if they're coming back. I never see anyone really wearing these jeans, so I don't know if it's two people wore them and everyone just kind of freaked out, or if they are actually coming back and I'm just super out of the loop. Regardless of whether the argument is over jeans, the way you part your hair, or what you call leggings, I do think at the end of the day, all of these arguments boil down to people that are angry because they were there first, and then the other camp going, well, yeah, you were there first, so now you're super old now. Get the hell out. It's like a bigger version of the fights that we always see when Disney reboots something. Like clockwork, literally every single fucking time. Neither of which you have to pay attention to, by the way, to enjoy TikTok. I'm having a lot of fun on the app over in the Calico Critters corner of it that I've been stuck on for 2 months. There's more than enough niche corners of that app to hide in, whether you intend to or not, that these kind of conversations can go right over your head without you even realizing it. I do at the end of the day though wish that there wasn't such a big stress on your generational identity. I don't understand this like weird sense of pride of being tied to some sort of generation. Like maybe because I'm in the middle of two, I just don't really feel that kind of like need to be tied to something, but it just feels kind of arbitrary. I think what I'm trying to say here is that I just don't think it should be a big enough deal where we're fighting over it. Like, just enjoy the app. I would really like to hear your guys' thoughts on this, regardless of whatever generation you're from. If you have any experiences you wanted to share, feel free to share them. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. You can also turn my post notifications on, which if you want to be updated every single time that I upload, you just click the bell and then set it to all instead of personalized, and you're good to go. You can also follow me outside of YouTube on Instagram and Twitter, which are both Aonso, and I also stream every single week on Twitch, which is honestly a really fun time. You can find me on there either in the link that'll be put in the pinned comment, or I'll put it like somewhere on the screen now. But that's about it for me. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.